Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video, I'll be talking about all there is to know when it comes to Canada in the Fallout universe. Keep in mind that some of this information comes from Fallout Tactics or the Fallout Bible, both of which are not considered canon anymore. But without any further ado, let's get into the lore. The process of Canadian annexation into the US first began in 2059. as this was when the US set up the Anchorage front line to protect Alaska's natural resources, namely their crude oil fields, from the People's Republic of China. Parts of the Alaskan oil pipeline cross Canadian borders. Because of this, the US pressured Canada to allow its military forces to secure the areas of the pipeline. After the Chinese invasion of Alaska in 2066, the US's increased military influence in Canada caused tensions to rise and riots to break out amongst the people. Despite Canadian protests, the USA exploited and spread thin Canada's natural resources. By 2069, the people of America regarded Canada as Little America. It was also at this time that vast amounts of timber was collected from Canada by the USA. In 2072, the USA increased its exploitation of Canadian resources. This caused there to be riots in multiple cities and an unknown force to arise to try to take out the Alaskan pipeline. These efforts to remove American influence in Canada ultimately failed, and gave the USA a formal reason to officially annex Canada. Once the atrocities committed on the Canadian people by the USA during its annexation was made known to the American public, it created much uproar and many protests occurred. However, this disapproval did not actually achieve much, and because of its natural resources, Canada was annexed regardless of what the Canadian and American people thought. In a statement to the press, the commander of US forces in Canada, General Buzz Babcock, cited security concerns as the primary reason for the annexation of Canada. He also stated that Little America was always the property of the United States, and the US military announced the official annexation of Canada on the 3rd of June 2072. The transcripts of Galaxy News Network's broadcasts go as follows. Transcript of broadcast February 14th, 2075. History was made today as Canada, by popular demand of its citizens, agreed to be annexed by the US. The president is quoted as saying, "Canada is one of the world's greatest sources of hockey players and will be a welcome addition to the US. In return, sources say Canada will receive a full 10% of the world's remaining supply of oil, controlled exclusively by the US, as well as 50% reduction in taxes, since they now fall under US tax laws." Transcript of broadcast February 15th, 2075. In a stunning display of solidarity, the House of Representatives and Congress both voted unanimously to impeach the president for jaywalking. Both houses stated that the president is not above the law and should have known better than to jaywalk. Both sides deny that this has anything to do with the recent annexation of Canada. I'd like to mention that this information from the transcripts does contradict what Buzz says, but I'd like to think that this is just reporting later on about the annexation of Canada, as it doesn't fully complete until 2077. But I just wanted to mention that the law is kind of inconsistent on this point. In 2077, the annexation of Canada was complete and Canada ceased to exist as a country. The provinces occupied by the American military became US territories, remaining under its political and military control, but not as states or commonwealths in their own right. Violence escalated, and security detachments equipped with combat armor were sent to suppress Canadian population and any resistance movements. Protesters, rioters, and resistance members alike were shot on sight, sometimes even executed on camera. Even among the military, the annexation was met with mixed reactions. For some, the act was considered criminal. Open warfare between the opposing armies across the former nation commenced, with the Yukon becoming one of the many fronts alongside Anchorage in the resource wars. Despite the outcry, the military initiative forged ahead. Propaganda portrayed the annexation as a liberation, with comic series such as Tales from the Front and cartoons such as Armor Ace and the Power Patrol championing the US occupation forces while villainizing Canadian resistance. Titles for these comics that we know about are Tales from the Front, Alaska Unbound, which was released in June of 2077, Tales from the Front, Liberated Canada, which was published in July of 2077, and Tales from the Front, Red Terror, which came out in August 2077. The story of Armor Ace focuses on an idealized American soldier in custom power armor who leads a military organization known as the Power Patrol. Secondary protagonists include members such as Platinum, Brick House, and the Kotlik siblings Icebreaker and Double Tap. The organization's adventures pitted them against propagandized versions of the United States of America's enemies. These included the Red Vipers, a stand-in for the People's Liberation Army, led by the Subjugator, the Secretary of Oppression, and the Yukon 5, a group of rogue robots led by Commissioner Chaos representing Canadian resistance. These antagonists served as exaggerated propaganda for America's youth, pushing the idea that the Sino-American War and the United States annexation of Canada were heroic moral endeavors. Yukon 5 go as follows. Commissioner Chaos, leader of the Yukon 5, the Quebec Claw, no one escapes his frigid grasp, the Duke Bots, the beating plays on, Absolute Zero, he'll take you down to nothing, Mr. Shivers, cold-blooded dealer of hot-blooded violence. The show ended up with its own merchandise, including toys and 2 board games, the March of Freedom and Cold Steel. Vault-Tec in particular sought to bank on the annexation of Canada as they began building and advertising available vaults in newly annexed Canada. The Great War occurred and the global societies and borders collapsed. Some Canadians eventually travelled down into what was once the United States, either immigrating in search of their fortunes or drawn by trading goods making their way north from places like New California. Margie Labargie was born on the coast of Lake Labargie, a widening river of the Yukon 90 miles off of Alaska. Long Branch Arsenal was a pre-war firearms facility in Ontario, Canada. The United States Armed Forces took over the facility, and the survivalist rifle in Fallout New Vegas was manufactured at this facility. Long Branch Arsenal is based on the real-world location of the same name. Kane, one of the insane members of the Children of the Cathedral, believes that he may have lived in the city of Penticton, British Columbia. Or he just saw it on an old world map. Who knows? He certainly doesn't. Penticton is a real-world city of the same name in British Columbia. Coco Rockfell says that he learnt about Saskatchewan in an encyclopedia. For those that are unaware, Saskatchewan is a Canadian province. In Fallout Tactics, there is a group called the Canadian Invasion Recreationalists. They are a group of hobbyists who engage in a recreation of the United States annexation of Canada. One of the events they planned is the Uprising of Edmonton. Daniela Faye was a victim of car theft before the Great War. A book of hers can be found at Foggy Bottom Station in Fallout 3. A vehicle belonging to Daniela was stolen, taken for a joyride, and subsequently dumped along the side of the highway, with a burnt-out engine. It matched the description of a car involved in a series of recent out-of-state traffic offences. When recovered, one of the items found in the car was a Canadian flag. Speaking to Cass about Gene Baptiste cutting, she makes fun of his name, saying it sounds Canadian instead of Canadian in Fallout New Vegas. The terminal in the Great Divide tells us the story of Jackie, a US soldier who wished to move to Canada after their term was up, but their final entry following a particularly large earthquake was cut off and trailed into gibberish. Canada is listed as an incorrect answer to the question, which country was the first to build a major railway system, in an exam at the Pioneer Scout Camp in Fallout 76. Sale figures of Sunset Sarsaparilla can be found on an infographic poster in the company's headquarters. The poster includes sale figures for Canada in purple, suggesting that it made up a decent size of their profits. Dave Handy was originally from Canada. In Fallout 3, all mailboxes have a 5% chance of having mail addressed to the residents who are not able to secure a spot in local vaults. The letter lists other sites including newly annexed Canada as a possible alternative. Special encounter in Fallout Tactics called Canadian Invasion Recreationalists. During this encounter, Clarissa will instruct a group to gather next to the American side of the line drawn on the ground. She will then direct the group to walk across to the Canadian side of the line. And once complete, the group gets drunk to celebrate. She mentions that there is strong evidence that the Canadian Army wore pink. Another random encounter in Fallout Tactics is called Canadian Invasion, where a group is hostile to anyone who approaches, calling them Canadian scum and devious, further commenting that Canada started the Great War. When engaged in combat, they state that they invaded your country once and they'll do it again. Another random encounter in Fallout Tactics shows two Canadian resistance groups, the CPF and the PFC, arguing over the future of Canada. Each of these two groups features a maple leaf on their respective flags. These two groups are called the Canadian People's Front and the People's Front of Canada. This entire event is just a parody of the Monty Python film Life of Brian, where two groups fighting the Romans, the People's Front of Judas and the Judean People's Front, fight over the future of Jerusalem. Although the entire flag of Canada is not shown in the games, the maple leaf used on the unique weapon Annabelle in Fallout New Vegas is a stylized 12-pointed variant created specifically for the nation of Canada in 1945 to make it more visible from a distance. In the cancelled Fallout game, Fallout Extreme, the northwestern territories of Canada would be explored, and locations such as the Muntuk Preserve and Great Convocation, with the Inuit and Muntuk Native Americans being relevant factions. And that is everything we know about Canada in the Fallout universe, whether it be canon or not. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and check out some of my other lore videos or my Fallout New Vegas challenge videos that I've been doing. I appreciate you guys watching, and I hope I see you in the next video. I'd really appreciate it if you could give me some other suggestions for videos that you would like to see, and I'll see you in the next one.